Did Rampart just make a massive mistake killing Captain Wilco? At the end of episode 2, season 2 of The Bad Batch, we get a rather cold moment from Rampart where he shoots Wilco after Wilco refuses to forge military reports. Rampart, fearing the repercussions should Tarkin find out that the Bad Batch weren't killed off on Kamino as they should have been, decides to pull the trigger himself, covering up his tracks to save his own career, a really ruthless moment that helps let the audience know just how far Rampart is willing to go to protect his own self-interest. But is killing Wilco really the right thing to do, or a crucial misstep that might just come around to bite Rampart somewhere down the line? Well, I'm pretty sure that it's the latter. To be fair to Rampart, I can see why it would make sense for him to get rid of Wilco. Wilco's insistence on reporting everything as it is and refusal to see things the way Rampart wishes to definitely poses a risk to Rampart's long-term plans. Had the original report from Wilco gone through and end up on Tarkin's desk, it could very well have ended Rampart's military career prematurely and probably put the future of the Project Warmantle into question. But a lot of Rampart's decision to end Wilco's life seems to be a decision made rather hastily. Although the Bad Batch did survive the destruction of Topoka City, contrary to Rampart's original report to Tarkin, Wilco's report on their survival may not necessarily have put Rampart in that much risk. Sure, Rampart's belief that the Bad Batch died on Kamino was a definite oversight, but who could really blame him for his mistake? It would almost be impossible to get a visual confirmation of the deaths of the Bad Batch. If the Bad Batch had died on Kamino, their bodies would have either have disintegrated from the orbital bombardment or become food for the fishes, and given Kamino's entire planet is an ocean, it would be rather impossible if not extremely costly to launch a search to achieve visual confirmation, especially for a group of rowdy clones. I mean, if you viewed the city's destruction from above, you can't really blame anyone for assuming that nothing would be left alive. I mean, the entire city did sink into the ocean. To be fair, it is true that a man like Tarkin wouldn't suffer any fools, and he most certainly doesn't tolerate any mistakes. But it seems to me that a mistake like the one Rampart made on Kamino wasn't that big of a deal overall. Sure, it would probably diminish Rampart's status in the eyes of Tarkin, but it would definitely have been far from any career-ending outcome. Besides, this wouldn't be the first time Tarkin had a subordinate that failed him. So long as the mistake wasn't a major one, he is usually more than capable of looking the other way. And given that since the events on Kamino, the Bad Batch really haven't done anything of note, at least not to the extent that would warrant the attention of the Empire, it just seems to me like a bit of an overreaction from Rampart's part. He could have easily allowed Wilco's report to go through, take the slap on the wrist, and try to make up for it by making sure the job was done this time round. Given that the threat the Bad Batch posed to the Empire was little to none at this point in time, it doesn't seem like Rampart should have been all that panicked about it. The only reason or cause for concern on Rampart's part is that he simply values his own personal image too much to allow such a mistake to occur, or that he really doesn't want to take the chance to look bad in front of Tarkin, all of which are definitely plausible reasons. But while it might make sense from a political perspective as to why Rampart might want to get rid of Wilco, it can't be said from a military perspective. You see, with Rampart killing off Wilco, he might have potentially denied himself a valuable asset, one of the few individuals in the Imperial military capable of actually keeping up with the Bad Batch. If we go through the first 2 episodes, Wilco's response to the Bad Batch's attempt at a heist was, all things considered, pretty efficient and effective. Beginning with the Bad Batch's attempt at a distraction, Wilco immediately identifies that the destroyed V-Wings are a ruse, which allowed him to react quickly enough that caused the team to get separated, making the heist far more complicated for the Bad Batch. After this, Wilco's constant pursuit of the Bad Batch also ensured that they would be under a lot of pressure. Choosing to release the escape pods to prevent half the team from escaping the ship was a pretty sound move. Trapping Hunter and Wrecker in Dooku's chamber was a great idea as well, if it weren't for the fact that the two of them got lucky by managing to access a secret exit. And the chase in episode 2 was no different, strategically deploying both aerial and ground units to flush the Bad Batch out, all of which was successful in consistently tracking down the team and attempting to capture them. For the most part, Wilco accurately predicted the movements of the Bad Batch, deployed the correct strategies and countermeasures to capture them. all of which at the very least made sure that the Bad Batch would walk away empty-handed. The only reason as to why he failed to capture them was simply because he couldn't account for the Bad Batch's ingenuity. Given that this was his first encounter with these rogue clones, you can't really blame him for not being able to finish the job. Not to mention, most of the regular clones are completely outclassed in combat when going up against such an elite force. And so when you take that into consideration, the limited time, resources, and information Wilco had, the captain really didn't do such a bad job after all. And had Rampart decide to take a closer look and set aside his own personal goals and agenda, it would probably be something he would have realized. Especially if you take into account all the times that the Bad Batch have managed to escape really hairy situations, it's not an easy job at all trying to capture them. After all, this was the same team that managed to infiltrate a highly secure secret facility filled with clone commandos, including members of Delta Squad, and still achieved their mission objective. Granted, it wasn't easy, but they still managed it either way. What Wilco demonstrated in his short engagement with the Bad Batch is that he is clearly someone who can go toe-to-toe with this elite squad. If given the right amount of resources and support, Wilco does have the intellect and confidence to capture them, something which Rampart seriously needs if he wants to get rid of the Bad Batch once and for all. And so had Rampart decided to set his own personal ambitions for a moment and view Wilco not as a liability but as an asset, it might have been better off for him in the long run. Putting a man like Wilco at the head of an operation to handle the Bad Batch would have actually allowed him to correct a long-standing mistake and demonstrate some serious leadership. But instead of doing so, Rampart simply decides to make Wilco one with the Force.
I will.
So now with Rampart shooting Wilco in the face, he may have also shot himself in the foot. This may very well have been Rampart's biggest means to capture the Bad Batch outside the possibility of using Commander Cody. It's also somewhat baffling to think that Rampart assumes that he can keep the survival of the Bad Batch a secret for long. Especially as the Bad Batch begin to get more involved in galactic-wide issues, you can be sure that news of their survival will make its way back onto Tarkin's desk. But hey, I guess we'll just have to wait and see. So what do you guys think? Was killing Wilco a mistake? Be sure to let me know in the comments down below. Be sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. I am the Lost Acolyte,
and I have spoken.